Welcome everybody. Today I'm going to do something a bit different. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that we're all about kettlebells and mobility, flexibility, strength, and everything that just comes with mobility. So I've got some routines that I go through when I do my workouts. So I'll do a set of something for strength, and then I'll do my routine for mobility and flexibility. So I'm just going to run through that. I'm going to have a look at it and then I'm going to break it down. So here we go. Okay, so I'm in the 90-90 position, which is where the knees are pointing one way and the feet are pointing the other way. So one leg is externally rotated at the hip and the other is internally rotated at the hip. So this is really great for your hip mobility. Right now I'm getting out of you could say a deep curtsy lunge. The foot is flat, so you're working on strength from within that rotation of the hip. So while I'm in that rotation of the hip, I'm getting up. You're working on your ankle strength. Here I still got some work to do. I'm keeping the back foot flat to work on the ankle flexibility. So that's the calves and the front foot. I'm trying to get that locked out. Now I'm bringing my leg back over from leg over back into 90-90. Then I rotate that thoracic spine and you could say it's like a windmill. As I come up, I really tense everything. So I clench my fist so that everything is tight. Here, where I am doing the shin box. And then as I'm at the front of the shin box, I really pull myself forward to work on those hip flexors. Now I'm performing the stretch on the other side. So this arm here, the lat, really gets a good stretch as I'm in that. As I'm getting back out of that, you're working your muscles for strength, like your QL, your obliques, etc. Here, I keep the back foot in the position that I came up in. So that works strength while the foot is dorsiflexed. Um, Here I'm working on hamstring flexibility again and the calves. So that back foot I'm trying to get straight on the ground, moving back into the 90-90 here. And I really want to get my hips down to the ground, or rather my buttocks down to the ground. Now I move one foot from the front to the back so that I'm in a kneeling position. Now I'm working on strength in the quads, really targeting the rectus femoris as the hips are extended. Then you can really target that muscle out of the four muscles in the quadriceps. That muscle is then lengthened and there is more work done by that muscle. Now moving back into the 90-90, back into the flow that I've been doing. So I'm working on thoracic rotation. So your thoracic spine is from about your lumbar, just above your lumbar to your neck. Here moving into leg over and then coming out of that deep curtsy lunge. The curtsy lunge is one of my favorite lunges to do. It just really works on the hips. Right there, I just did the knee forward. I dropped the knee forward, and that works on ankle dorsiflexion in that front foot. Back into the 90-90, back into arm over while in thoracic rotation. So that really works your core internally. Here, the shin box, I really try and pull my shoulders forward. So that works your hip flexors actively while I keep my back straight as I do this. So you don't want to do this while your back is rounded. So I just keep adding things on to the flows that I keep doing. So I enjoy it as well, you know. I'm working on the ankles, I'm working on the calves, I'm working on knee strength, I'm working on the hips, internal rotation, external rotation. I'm working on extension of the hips. I'm working on the hamstrings, just about everything. It's just from one to the next. Now, I will also do this with a kettlebell in a bit, which we call caveman ROM, mobility under load or flexibility under load, which is great. But of course, before you do that, so a lot of people look at caveman ROM and they go like, "Oh, this is cool. I want to do this," but they don't understand that before you do something like that, there's a year or several years that you build up to that with just body weight. You got to work on those ranges, the range of motion, hip extension, hip flexion, the knees knee strength, super, super important. Calf flexibility, being able to get your heels to the ground. All these things are super important. So mobility is a combination of a lot of things: strength, range of motion, proprioception, and so much more. It's not just one thing. Everybody thinks, mobility is the same as flexibility, but flexibility is just a part of mobility. Mobility really means ease of movement, and a lot of attributes help to make a movement easier. Now I'm just back into the routine again. The most important thing there is when I'm coming out of that windmill, I'm pressing that knee into the ground. So that's like the hip is externally rotated and with abduction. Or abduction. Yes, abduction. Sometimes I need to think and imagine what it is. I don't want to give out false information. Okay, so back into the routine. As I bring that leg over, I try and keep it straight and point the toes as well. So all this works on strength in the hips and just control in the hips and range as well. So you're rotating, extending your knees, etc. So many things are happening as you're doing this. And it's best to do it slow as well, so that you can focus on the full movement. Things are always easier when you do them fast. Like if I would swing this leg over right now and just get up fast, it's easier than doing it slowly. As you do it slowly, you're working a lot more on stability because every inch you need to stabilize. You're working a lot more on strength. Fast is easy. I always say you haven't mastered an exercise until you do it slowly. So back into the routine. Here I bring the leg back and the dorsum is flat. So that's really the first part, or the dorsum of the foot. That's the first part of your progression, which is getting the shins flat to the ground. So if this is your foot right here, this is plantar flexion right here, and that's what you need to work on to get that shin flat to the ground. Now downward dog into a push-up. So I'm working the wrists as well because I'm dropping the elbows down to the ground. You can't really see it, you can see it in the mirror. I'm dropping the elbows down to the ground. There I'm working on wrist strength, which is something that I incorporate a lot. Also in this routine, actually, I am working on wrist strength as well. So not only with this push-up, but also doing that flexibility routine that I've been doing. As I press my hands into the ground, you're working on wrist strength, but also wrist flexibility. Here I'm working on getting the buttocks to the ground. So it's very important to have good internal hip rotation. If you're lacking that internal hip rotation, then you can't get your butt to the ground and your knees are going to get damaged. Here, crow position, I believe it's called, which is great for wrist strength, wrist flexibility, and wrist stability. Out of the crow, I like to move into a very, very slow and controlled squat, the up phase. Really, really slow, making sure that the knees don't cave in and just everything stays in place. Then as I get up, I like to work on the scapula and the thoracic spine. So here my hips are not moving. That's very important. I'm pressing my left leg into the ground. Now I'm pressing my right leg into the ground. Sure, there's a bit of movement in the hips, but most of the movement is in the thoracic spine. Now that I'm warm, now that I'm warmed up, I added a kettlebell to some of the movements. So here the 1990 windmill, which is great for shoulder stability. So you're working on flexibility under load. So as you go down and come back up, obviously there's a lot more weight above you to come back out of, even with the reverse curtsy. So there's a lot more weight on my back foot as well. This is all good, but you got to have that flexibility first. And I add a press to it as well, which works more on stabilization. So the weight is really not that heavy, but it's more about getting that weight high. So that creates an unstable environment. And when you're working in an unstable environment, you're working on stability. So the rest of the body needs to stabilize. I'm switching sides and performing the shin box and 1990 and then the 1990 windmill on the other side. So really, this is really good to work on your glute strength when you're coming into that windmill and then out of it. Because you're pressing that knee into the ground. Okay, you can also do it without pressing that knee into the ground, but the objective is to press that knee into the ground and to pull on the other side. So with your obliques on the other side and press with your knee on one side. I'll make some diagrams as I'm editing this video to make that clearer. And that's it. There's a lot more to say about this, obviously, but I hope you get the gist of it. And I hope you start introducing some routines in your workouts as well. So between your sets, you know, it could be cardio, could be strength, whatever you're doing. As it's high intensity, you need some recovery time. And in that recovery time, work on yourself. If you're interested in more stuff like this, then come and check out our workouts. We got over 200 workouts in our library. And you also get coaching as well. So you get access to me and Anna and whoever else is in the group, and that's an expert. There's lots of people in there that are beginners, but there's also people that are a bit more advanced. But you never have to be scared about anything because everybody's there to learn. So check that out. I'll post some links below, and there's also a book on Caveman ROM. And of course, as I said, start at the beginning. So there's a book called No Excuses, Flexibility for Office Workers and At-Home Workers. That's where you start. Most people, when they open it up, it's like, oh, you know, I want to do the interesting stuff. But that's how you get injured, when you start with skipping progression. You need to stick with that progression. It's going to take you half a year or a year. You got to say to yourself, I'm in it for the long run. I want to do this here, but I know that I need to do this here. I need to start here. If you don't do that, you'll start here, but you'll get injured, and then you'll have to go back, and then you go in again, and you get into this vicious circle where you just get injured all the time. So really, invest the time here, commit, say, I'm going to do this, I want to do this, but I know I need to start here. That's it. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any. Just post them below. I'll always read everything, and I will answer.
Cavemantraining is the premier provider for online kettlebell education.